Hey, what's up YouTube? Q here, and today I want to talk to y'all about a little personal story I had. The date was November 23rd, 2018, and this was actually Black Friday. This is back when I had a 2001 BMW M5 and a 94 Land Cruiser. I decided to go to a dealership on Black Friday, and I was curious, like, man, can I get a deal on Black Friday? And I love my BMW M5, but the reason I figured I would trade it in on the Scion FRS was because that car, that's like the only car that I had that I felt like I would never drive in the wintertime. And that's because it's kind of an old car, it's high horsepower. I don't know if the safety features, how up to par they are with today's safety standards in that car. And I drive my kids back and forth in that car. So I figured that I would get something else just because that car is fragile and it was an appreciating asset. That car was actually gaining money and they're getting more expensive day by day. Before I dive deep into the story, make sure you guys hit that like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, stay updated on my latest videos. And if you want to, you can browse back. The first car I started my channel with was the FRS. Now back to it. So I woke up. November is normally cold. My BMW has summer tires on it, but it was like 50 degrees this day. I'm like, man, it's a beautiful day outside. Let me ride down to this dealership, because I was already looking at FRSs. This is one of the cars that I wanted to drive. And I went down there, test drove it. I'm like, man, this isn't a bad car at all. And my whole intention of trading the BMW in was that I wanted something that I could depend on, something reliable, something Toyota's known for. But that wasn't the case in this instance. So yeah, BMWs, they're known to have high repair bills, and electrical issues happen quite a lot. They're amazing cars to drive, and I wouldn't mind having one of those again. I took it down to the dealership to get it appraised, and they actually gave me a very fair amount, very close to what somebody would pay, a private buyer would buy it for. So I'm like, man, I'm actually about to do this. And the FRS is a great little car. I heard nothing but good reviews, minus the horsepower and torque. Now, if you want to see my views on that, I got a couple of videos on it as well. I had a really awesome salesman. The finance guy was great. Things ended up turning for the worst. And let me tell you why. And honestly, I don't like having two cars at a time. I feel like I like to have one car to do everything. And the BMW and the Land Cruiser, both two amazing cars. But I don't have the space really for two extra cars here. And I hate paying insurance on a car that I'm not going to drive all the time. And it killed me to see the BMW just sit. Because it was already down for about a month, just sitting here in the garage. And I don't like, especially that was the car. I don't want my good car to just be sitting there. So I want to drive it all the time. And so yeah, I'm at the dealership. Awesome sales guy. Finance guy was very friendly. And we sealed the deal. We went back and forth with the negotiation. You know how dealerships do. Took all day. So now I test drove the car. Car checked out to be really well. I had a couple scratches on the bumper, but I was willing to look past that, and I was able to negotiate a lower price or a better trade-in on my car. I'm on the way home, and my house is only like 20-something miles from the dealership, so 25 minutes, no more than 30 minutes to get home from this dealership. So on my way home, the check engine light comes on. And I'm like, damn, what's going on? So I called back to the dealership, the sales guy. He told me he had the car filled up. I'm like, dude, did you have this car filled up with regular or premium? 'Cause this car takes premium. He's like, oh man, I use regular. If you top it off with premium, it should be all right. And this dealership, this is a thing I don't like about them. They didn't even fill the car up. They gave me like almost a half tank of gas. I'm like, man, I've never been to a dealership where they didn't fill the car up. And this dealership is Todd Wenzel Buick GMC in Westland, Michigan. And if you look at the Google reviews, they don't have the best reviews. They had like a 3.5 star rating. Had I known what was about to happen to me, like I would have just avoided the dealership from the get-go. I would have just stayed home that day, and I really wish I did. So along with this check engine light, it was a slight vibration too. I'm like, man, maybe the engine is it's idling a little bit rough, but it was still drivable. I'm like, man, it just must be bad gas. I'll just top it off after I get home. So I was there for hours. Like, let me just get home, and then I'll fill it up the next time I go out. But unfortunately for me, I didn't even make it home. So I'm not even 2 miles from my house. And I was at a stoplight, and the car just shuts off. I'm like, dude, what's going on? So then I was at a red light. The light turned green. I was able to start it up, and I drive for like another mile. And then every time I stopped, the car just shut off. So at this point, I'm not even a mile away from my house. I'm in front of the hospital, and had sump pump going off. I'm like half a mile from my house. Driving right now on the way home. The car is very loud. Check engine lights came on, and every time I come to a stoplight, the whole car just shuts off, and the car just stops at a red light. And unfortunately for me, the car didn't start up. It didn't turn over after this time. I'm in the Scion. Yeah, it won't even turn over at the moment. Not even home yet on my trip. This is me trying to start it, and it won't even start. It turned right off. So I'm just sitting there at a green light. My car just stopped. So I turned my hazards on. I'm in the middle of the road. I can't do anything. I can't even start it up to move it to the side. And then when I'm starting it up, the engine just sounds really bad. Like, I hear metal grinding, and it was vibrating really harshly. I'm like, dog, what is going on? So at this point, I called the salesman like, yo, dude, I didn't even make it home yet, and this car just broke down and left me stranded. Like, I got a tow truck on the way to tow me home, but I'm gonna have to bring this car back the next day. He was like, yeah, man, no problem, we'll take care of it. I'm like, all right, my guy. So sitting there waiting on the tow truck guy, and he's like, man, it's a really nice car. I'm like, yeah. And then we try to start it up again, and it's just sounding so bad that I don't even want to try to start it up anymore. He's like, what's wrong with it? I'm like, dude, I don't know. And honestly, I'm not that mechanically inclined, so I don't know how to diagnose a car like this. So we put the car on the tow truck. Yeah. Gonna sit in the truck and ride home. No,
that's a shame.
Yeah. The dealership just called. They said they'll take care of it. I ride home, get in the driveway. Push it in the garage, and I'm just like, man, I can't believe this just happened to me. But I'm like, you know what? I think the dealership is going to take care of me. I just got this car, didn't even put 30 miles on it, and it broke down. All right, I'm going to start the car for the first time today. Let's see how it sounds. Foot on the clutch. That just sounds really bad. I'm at home. I called the dealership like, yo, I'm about to send this car back to you. Just let me know. So I called the tow truck, and all these tow truck costs are on my dime. Like, the dealership's not helping out at all, but they assure me they're going to take care of me. So I called the tow truck guy and get it loaded on. and I send it back. And at this point, I'm like, this car is just broken, man. Something's severely wrong with this car. And as you can see in the picture, I had a dealer's plate on the car. I don't remember why they gave me a dealer's plate to drive home with. I think I left my title at home that day because I wasn't sure I was going to make a deal that day. So I was going to have to bring my title back. And in order to get my license plate from the BMW, I had to have the title there. I don't know, so I had to bring the title back. The car is at the dealership getting looked at. And it's taking a few days. A few days go by. I talked to the service manager. No, they actually sent me to the sales guy. Like, yo, Q, can you bring me that title? I'm like, look, man, my car is down, but I had the Land Cruiser, so I just drove out there, took the spare key and the title. And then while I'm there, they did a bait and switch. They're like, oh, the service manager wants to have a word with you. So I step into his office. I'm like, yo, man, what's up with the car? Am I ready to drive it back home? He's like, no, actually, you messed the car up. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, the car is able to do a freeze frame on when the car messed up, and you revved it all the way to 6,300 RPM. I'm like, yeah, the car it has a 7,300 RPM red line, so it can handle 6,000. He's like, no, man. You're not supposed to rev a car past 4,000. I don't care what car it is. I'm like, bro, cars can rev past that. Cars can rev up to the red line. And even when you get to the red line, it has a limiter. He's like, no, man. Cars shouldn't be rev past 4,000. I'm like, what about, you got your high revving cars like a S2000, this car, the FRS, the Mustang GT350. These all have high red lines. And it's not like I'm just driving in first gear with it in 6,000 RPM. I took it up there and then it came back down. But even when that happened, when I was driving the car, nothing went wrong. Like, I could feel nothing. But he's saying that's what happened. And then he started saying I did other stuff that I didn't do. It's like, yeah, man, you probably tried to double shift. I'm like, hold on, man. I'm driving home in normal traffic in Livonia, Michigan, known to be one of the racist places in America. I'm not double shifting anything, man, especially in Livonia. I just don't do that. That's one of the places I will not go above the speed limit. But he's like, yeah, man, future references never take a car past 4,000. I know a Toyota guy. He works there. He's like, yeah, no car should ever go past 4,000. I'm like, yeah, okay, man, whatever. So I speak to the general manager of the dealership. And he said, like, yeah, man, we'll try and work with you. So at this point, I'm like, work with me how? Like, are you going to fix my car or what's going on? And then they gave me an estimate of $7,600. I'm like, hold on, man. What are y'all doing? What are you saying? I'm like, I'm not about to pay this. I didn't even have the car for an hour, and the car left me stranded. So it was like, we'll work with you. And then they came back. They dropped it down to like 5,000 or 6,000 or whatever. But I'm like, look, man, you have got, no, you cannot be serious. I'll tame my words for some of my viewers. My kids watch this. I can't be swearing on here. But yeah, man, they sent me home, and I was so sick to my stomach, and this lasted for weeks. So then I'm like, man, I cannot believe this happened. I'm thinking this is a nightmare. Like, man, I'm just gonna wake up at one point. They'll be like, yeah, we'll take care of it for you. But that never happened. And so like a couple more weeks passed. I'm like, all right, where's my car at? What's really going on? So I was just post a picture because I can't remember everything off the top of my head. But they were saying like a valve spring had messed up, and the timing chain had jumped like 4 teeth. I don't know what none of this stuff means, but I do know the timing chain. And I guess this car was one of those cars where if the timing chain goes off track, then I don't know if it's interference or non-interference, but basically the engine self-destructed on itself. And I was to blame for that. But I was willing to take responsibility, but I didn't like how he lied to me and said that that I was double clutching and racing the car. Like, no, dude, I'm a mature adult. I'm not doing that. Like, I don't beat on my cars like that. So, yeah, and I know it was an as is, no warranty. If he would have told me that, like, look, man, it's as is, no warranty. Sorry it happened. I would have been like, man, that's messed up. But it is what it is. But to go lying on me like that, I ain't like that at all. So a couple more weeks passed by since I got this bill. He's like, yeah, man, I got more bad news for you. Like the throwout bearings messed up and the clutch, like something blew up in the clutch. I'm like, what? Like how did that happen, man? Like the car drove fine. How did the clutch mess up? And I'm not the most mechanically inclined, like I said, but I don't think this makes sense at all, man. I'm like, how did all this happen with just a little check engine light? And I called you guys. You would assure me this would be taken care of. But I got the car towed home. I'm like, y'all playing with me, right? Because at this point, I'm like, man, I might just go up there and But yeah, I kept my composure. And now it's like December 17th. So I called them this week like, look, man, just button the car back up together. And I'm going to take it somewhere else. And during this time, I had called Toyota of America. I'm like, yo, I just bought this car used at the GMC dealership. But the engine just self-destructed on me. And then I'm surprised the dealership didn't even like try to do that. They didn't try to help me out at all in any kind of way. But talking to a Toyota, I found out that there was an upcoming recall. That the engine valve springs, there was a recall on that. And that could cause the engine to self-destruct. I'm like, man, maybe that's it. Because I do not want to pay between $5,000 and $7,000. It's even more now since they say the clutch exploded or whatever. I'm like, man, it just made me sick to my stomach, this huge bill that I had to pay. But I made a case with Toyota. They're like, at the end of December, we're making this an official recall. Yeah, so I ended up making an appointment like further down the line. But before I get there, I called them that week to have my car put back together. I'm like, look, man, I don't trust you guys at this point. So I said, button my car up. I'm going to take it to an independent mechanic. I'm going to have them look at the car too, because at this point, I don't trust anything you guys are telling me. I called them a few days before, letting them know the day I'm going to pick it up. And then the day I go pick it up, my car is still on the hoist with the engine out the car, the transmission sitting on the floor. Ironically, my old BMW was next to it on the lift. They were getting it prepped to resell it or whatever. And so I'm like, dude, why is my car not back together? Why is it in pieces? Because I was sending my car to Napa, because I worked with them before. They hooked me up. They fix my cars, and they do good work. And anything that goes wrong, they take care of me. I got the tow truck on the way to this dealership. Like, look, man, the tow truck is on the way here. This engine has to be in this car, and it's not going to be enough time. Like, what were y'all doing? I said I was coming. Why didn't you even take initiative to put it together? So then, at this point, in Napa, they don't even repair cars. They want the car all buttoned up. So in case they have to take it apart, which they would have had to, they can be accountable for all the parts. And long story short, I had to take crates of my engine. I had to bolt the transmission down to a tow truck and then get it towed to Napa. And I had to pay $1,000 to get my car out of there for, they said it was 20 hours of labor to tear the car down, which I don't believe that was true, because that's a simple car and a simple engine. And I was talking to the mechanic that worked on the car there. He was like, oh, I think what happened isn't your fault, man. I'm like, oh my God. Like, that was just a sigh of relief to hear that. But he was like, yeah, there's no way you could have done that, especially that fast. But he's like, the dealership, they just don't want to pay for it. He says that's happened in the past too. I don't even want to give the guy's name. He was such a nice guy too. But he was like, if it were my call, it would be on the dealership. But I'm just a mechanic. I'm not the manager. So whatever they say is going to have to go. But he put the car back together as best as he could, as fast as he could. Yeah, I paid my $1,000 to the service manager. I just don't like that dealership at all. especially the service manager and the general manager weren't helpful at all. I take my car to Napa. They see the car in pieces, like the engine's just dangling in the engine bay. They're like, "I thought you said it was put together." I'm like, "Look, man, my guy Lou at Napa, he was like," I'm so sorry, Lou. Like, I didn't know the car wasn't together, but I had to do all this in one motion. I had to take off work, call the tow truck, come to this dealership, not planning on having it here just so it can get serviced on. I didn't know it was going to be all in pieces, so I had to apologize for that. But he was like, "Look, man, I don't even think I can take this car." I'm like, "Man." And each of these tows, it cost me like $150, $170, because none of this stuff is like right around the corner from me. But he was like, "I'll see what I can do. We got a guy here. He specializes in Subaru engines." So Napa, they ended up getting an engine that the Todd Wenzel dealership was going to get. It had 34,000 miles on it, and it was in Ohio. And the dealership even lied about the engine. They're like, "Yeah, man, this engine's going to be gone. If you don't get it today, then it won't be here." I waited a couple of weeks, and the engine was still there. Like, I don't know what they were lying for. I just can't give my money. Like, it would have made more sense for them to fix it, but I refuse to give my money to a dealership that's going to lie to me like that, as blatant as that. And then I just didn't trust them on it. So yeah, after a couple more weeks, Napa had my car all up and running, and it was all good. And for the Subaru, the 2013 engine is different from the 14, 15, and so on. I don't know why they said the 2014 engine couldn't go in there, but they said only the 2013 engine can go in there. So we had to stick with that. And so that means, so this recall, I ended up calling, after I was all set from Napa, the Toyota dealership. I talked to them in like February. They're like, "Yeah, we'll get you scheduled, but the parts are on back order, so it can take weeks to get you in." And they didn't get the parts in until like March. So I had to get the recall fixed on this new engine, because the same thing could have happened on this engine. But what everybody's saying was the engine, the valve spring, wasn't the issue, which I think it was that issue, but nobody wanted to pay. And they have the best lawyers, so I don't think I could have put up a chance. Number one, because it was the as is, no warranty. That's number one. And then the lemon law, that works with new cars if you keep bringing it back for the same thing. So I basically don't have a case with a used car. Yeah, that just sucked for me in all ways, shapes, and forms. It ended up costing me, I'll show you whatever I paid at Napa, but it was like $6,000 plus a couple hundred because something was missing. But yeah, learned a very valuable lesson from that. And also the mechanic from Todd Wenzel, he told me like the timing chain was worked on before, because he said there was some kind of goop or something where the timing chain case is sealed in. He was like, somebody's been in there before, so you definitely want to call Toyota and see what that was about. And I actually did. When I was when I was getting the recall work done, they pulled up the history, and Suburban Toyota of Troy, Michigan, they did a phenomenal job too. The service person that helped me, her name was Mary. She was so helpful, but she was telling me, she pulled it up like, yeah, this was done at a Toyota dealership, and they did do some timing chain work. So you might want to call back to Toyota corporate and file another claim and let them know that happened. And I sent her all my documents, all these receipts that I had, and she was able to fax it over. And I got another case for them. But that was also denied, because they were like, "Oh, the dealership said that the dealership mentioned the timing chain, so it had nothing to do with the recall with the engine valve spring." The claim was denied, so I just had to live with that. Spent like close to $7,000 to get that engine rebuilt or replaced. So my takeaway from this, that's why I'm buying new cars. Like everything I'm buying now, I traded the Scion in. I'm like, man, if this engine goes bad, that car, I'm like, man, I hated looking at the car. And then I got rear-ended too. On top of that, I was at a stoplight. The F-150 just went. I'm like, what are you doing, man? but it wasn't even that major. It was just an annoyance. What I learned from this was, if I ever buy a used car again, I am going to beat the crap out of that car on the test drive. I'm going to do an extensive test drive, get a pre-purchase inspection, maybe even stick with certified pre-owns. Or, like for the case of my M5, I knew it was a car that's known to have expensive repairs. Just have a bunch of money saved up to go to the repair funds. I wouldn't recommend going to Todd Wenzel because the mechanic, he was like, they did the same thing to other people. Sometimes they'll fess up to selling the car with a bad engine or whatever. Sometimes they don't. And that was just the unfortunate case that where they didn't. But like I said, if they would have told me as is, no warranty, I would have been like, man, that sucks. Let me move on and not look back at this. Let me just keep moving forward. But they just lied and said, no, you were racing the car. You were double clutching. Like the car can't go past 6,000 RPM or let alone 4,000 RPM. And I didn't like that part at all. I'm like, man, they're just trying to make their case so they wouldn't have to, so they would feel okay about not being on the hook. And that's just business. But I got another friend that works at another dealership. He just said that's a bad dealership. And I'll just stay away from them. And I'm telling you all, don't buy a used car from them either. Or even go to the service part. The sales, phenomenal. The finance guy, he was very friendly, but he started playing dumb. Like he knew he called me into the dealership so I could talk to the service manager. He was a nice guy too. But I don't know, man. The integrity, man. I didn't respect that at this dealership. Like they were like, oh man, they act like they were helping me, but they weren't doing anything. They were treating me like I was a stranger. Like I didn't just pay like $13,000 for this car. So I should have just stayed home this day. So make sure you get a pre-purchase inspection if you buy a used car. Do a thorough test drive. Make sure you go to a reputable dealership. Just look at their reviews. I always check reviews before I get a car. Just take your time too. Like if they pull that crap like, oh, this deal is only for today, just walk away, because any deal can be had at any time. It's like they don't have anything that makes them say you have to buy this car today. It's just a scare tactic to pressure you in. Don't fall for it. If you're not knowledgeable about cars, make sure you bring a friend or somebody that you know who does know a thing or two about cars. Like me, I bought so many used cars before. I never had a problem with anyone this soon. I did have a problem with one of my cars. It's something about these Japanese cars that I'm assuming are reliable, but they keep leaving me stranded on the side of the road. I had a 2004 Acura TL manual, like traction control, ABS lights that came on. They did some work to the car before they sold it to me, but I took it to them. They gave me a free loaner car for a couple of days. They fixed the car with no questions asked at all. And it was very pleasant too. I personally can't even recommend getting the aftermarket warranty unless it's a very, very reputable one. But if you do a couple searches, you'll realize they aren't worth the paper that they're written on. A lot of the times they'll say, oh, that was a pre-existing condition, file rejected, or the claim denied. So I would stay away from those too. And that's why I'm buying these cars with new warranties as of late. It's my nightmare experience at Todd Wenzel Buick GMC in Westland, Michigan. I appreciate you all for listening. Yeah, this happened like in 2018, the end of 2018. Now it's the beginning of 2020. I just didn't feel comfortable even talking about this. Like I never even told any of my closest friends this story, just because it just messed up my mental for so long. I don't even want to think about that. But now I'm at a point where I'm okay and I'm free to talk about it now. A lot of people told me to sue, but like I said, I spoke to my friend that he's the buyer for a dealership, and he spoke to his lawyers, and they said I basically wouldn't stand a case up in court just because it was as is, no warranty. The only exception to that is if they describe something in the car which it was supposed to do that it didn't do. And I could have sworn I saw in the ad where I bought the car, it said revs up, red line, 7,300 RPM. But unfortunately, after I bought the car, that was gone. And I didn't even want to have to like go to court either, just because I'm like, man, just fix the car or help me out. But just don't act like I just abused the car, which I didn't. But I want to thank y'all for listening to this story. If you made it this far, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm here on quarantine, can't even drive my car. Yeah, make sure you guys just stay safe. Cover your mouths, wash your hands. Just stay isolated for now until we get this coronavirus kind of under wraps. Get a handle on that, because we surpassed the world in cases so far. So just stay safe, y'all. I'm Q, the Chaotic. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. And I'll catch you all on the next video.